One of the most crazy things I did was actually just with missionaries. Like we're broke, or they were broke, and they hadn't gone shopping yet. And so we're sitting there, and we open up the fridge. What do they have? And a member had given them some pulled pork. We had spaghetti noodles and barbecue sauce. And so we didn't know what to do, so we just combined it all, and we ate spaghetti, barbecue, pulled pork, and it actually wasn't as bad as we thought. But it was, I mean, I wouldn't eat it again probably. Sometimes I did find with like some of the families that we'd visit, especially the ones that weren't English, I wouldn't ask what was in it. I would just eat it, and then maybe afterwards they'd tell me, because they're different like soups and things like that where it's quite interested, and you just rather not know. But for the most part, the food was pretty normal. You could choose what to eat and what not to eat, and you could get by. Oh, we got hit by a hurricane once, and so my companion and I, we were in Carlisle, we traveled all the way down to Manchester, and when we got there we had a meeting, and then we couldn't get back because the trains were all shut down because it was just, wind was like super gale force winds and loads of rain, and it was just cold in general. So that was probably the most extreme we ever got hit by. It was considered a hurricane, and I think it was dying down by the time it got that far north, but at one point it was a hurricane and it blew in England. So one of the things would definitely be how to eat like with proper etiquette, like use my left hand and like bring food to my mouth, as cheesy as that sounds. That was definitely a new skill I learned in soccer. I was terrible at that before, or rubbish at that before my mission, but now I can actually play decently. One of the harder things on your mission is undoubtedly going to the England-Manchester mission. You'll have a couple transfers where things are just hard. It feels like nobody wants to talk to you. It's probably winter and it's cold and rainy, and you've knocked doors for like 8 hours a day, and at the end of the week, nothing. And I've had that a couple times, and it was just super difficult. But I just had faith. My companion and I were depressed, so we read the Book of Mormon. We read it together during lunch and dinner, and we kept going, and that gave us the faith and the strength. And looking back, those hard times were what prepared me to be a leader later on in my mission, and I wouldn't have been the same elder I was if it wasn't for those times. One experience, I never told my mission president about this, but I was with a new missionary and training him, and he wanted to take a shortcut back to the apartment. So we headed back, and he's like, there's a trail, and we're following this trail that he says leads to a bridge that's on the map. And I'm pretty skeptical, but we get there, and there's a bridge, but it's like a condemned bridge. There's like barricades up, and the bridge is like 10, 15 feet high as well. So like you have to like climb up to it because they got rid of the stairs and stuff. But we'd already gone like 2 miles out of the way. Well, in the way we were headed in the shortcut. And so I scale this bridge, and I hand him my bag, and I climb it in all my fancy dress clothes. And then he throws the bags up, and then he climbs a bit, and then I grab him and pull him up. And that wasn't too bad until we get to the other side of the bridge, and I lower him down. But now there's no like footholds for me. I was able to lower him down to drop him, and I'm stuck up on top of this bridge. There's barricades everywhere, and I have to like jump down. And that was probably one of the stupidest things I did on my mission, but we made it through, and we never told anybody about it. I had to get our suits dry cleaned because they were like so dirty and muddy. Proactivity with like diligence and just, I guess, faith in the Lord, but just going out and doing things on your own free will. Like sometimes you can just kind of go with the flow and tract all day long every day, but that's not the most effective way to do missionary work. So if you become proactive, you start thinking for yourself and finding ways to make the mission better. And I really was able to just start thinking, how can I help people? And that really will be useful for the rest of life. The first one that comes to mind I feel prompted to share was one of the ways my strongest witnesses I've ever had on how the Book of Mormon is true. And for myself, I've never received a witness that the Book of Mormon is true on my knees. I've asked quite a few times, I've pleaded and finished it and followed Moroni's promise, and I've never been given an answer on my knees. But whenever I bear testimony of the Book of Mormon, then I can feel it within me that I know it's true, and it's true, the burning of the bosom. And one such experience was late on one night. It was dark, and my companion and I were tracting houses, and a man answered, and he was somewhat hostile, kind of taking on Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon and things like that. And we didn't want to argue, so we left him with our testimony. And as I held the blue Book of Mormon in my hand, and I told that man I know the Book of Mormon to be true, and that it is the Word of God, it was one of those experiences that I can never deny or forget, because I knew within me that it was truer than true, that I was declaring the message that he needed to hear. And I told him that, and he wasn't very happy, but I left not angry, not upset, but knowing that the Book of Mormon was the Word of God. And it was one of those strong experiences that no matter what happened throughout the rest of my mission, I was stronger because of that. I studied Preach My Gospel, particularly chapter 3, but study the message of the restoration, because 85% of the time in the mission, that'll be the lesson you teach to people on the streets. Learn it like the back of your hand. Know like the first vision. In your first 5 weeks, you'll have to memorize the first vision, which seems daunting, but it's really not. But really just take the time to learn Preach My Gospel and choose to be obedient. Come out with an attitude that you want to do the very best that you can, and you want to follow the rules, and you'll do really well in the England Manchester mission. We're comparatively, I think, a pretty strict mission. We follow the rules, but we do it in a way where we want to. I think almost every missionary I talked to wanted to be obedient and wanted to follow the rules, and that was one of the greatest blessings of my mission. I love them. Sometimes it's difficult. Like, I had some companions that we didn't quite get along with, and then later we became best friends. But what you have to do is you have to really put them first, put yourself second, and just find things to talk about. Everyone has something in common, and you might be listening. You might not care about World of Warcraft, but your companion might love it. And so just listen to what they have to say and learn more about them. And as they see that you care about them, they're going to want to know about you, and you're going to be able to start to get along. But if you pray together, and if you talk about the gospel together, talk about the atonement and about faith, then you'll just be able to get past almost everything and do your inventories. Take the time to write it down, like write in your journal your experiences, everything you can remember. Something I did if you haven't left home yet, or if you're just kind of getting ready to leave the mission or you haven't been released, write yourself a letter about kind of your feelings as like Elder Kissel to Jacob Kissel. Get it down in writing so that you can always look back and have those memories, because when you try and remember, you forget. That's one of the reasons why we're always told to remember in the scriptures. But if you can write things down and you can make plans and stick to those plans, then you'll do a lot better. I did all right at that. I have some plans that I've been following, but other things I plan to write down, but when the world comes in and like hits you upside the head, you just get lost. So definitely take the time to organize yourself and prepare every needful thing, I guess you could say.